we're going to run through the standard tell, show, tell. So just in case you don't know who HSO are, here we are. Here's all our wonderful accolades. We've got some brilliant people. This is who you've got on the call today. You've got myself. I'm a solution specialist. I focus mainly on Power Apps. Larry is a Dataverse genius, and Justin is a portals wizard. And honestly, like, Justin's been doing some stuff that's literally pushed the boundaries of what portals are capable of doing themselves. The ask for the local authorities has been to ingest data about guests and sponsors and accommodations from a system called Foundries, which is a very loosey-goosey data system that's got loads and loads of free text fields and no validation. It's bun fight at the OK corral for whether the data is good or not. Then we've got some kind of managerial processes that need to happen. So guests and sponsors need to be linked up together with accommodations, and those accommodations form part of a placement where a guest enters an accommodation, and someone needs to conduct checks and track payments. And then what we're trying to do as well is kind of conduct a notional data model to drive the ability to analyze. So we've come at this from the ability of from the concept of whatever data model we build, it needs to be an analytics driven data model from the get-go. So what we don't have is a bajillion tables and a highly normalized data structure. We've got like literally 6-7 tables in total. We're using the common data model in every possible location that we can, so it should be easy to kind of get onboarded with this thing, and it's not a massive imposition on any existing implementation. We managed to pull out some personas. So Larry, when he demos today, he's gonna be there with Lucy, who's our super user. She's got probably got some Dataverse expertise, or we're going to give her a little bit of some when we do the install and configuration. She's the one who's going to go and do the export from Foundry, the messy data. She's going to kind of cajole it in Excel and get it into the system and fire it through our data flow. And she's also able to sort of administer the wider system that this sits on top of. Shiraz is our placement manager. This is the main man to come and see if you need to assign a guest to a placement and kind of deal with all those sponsors checks and payments and all that kind of good stuff. And he's going to look to see whether the checks have been carried out or not. And we've got Katrina, who's our checks clerk. She's going to perform the checks on the placements, right? So she may be liaising with other authorities and institutions, or she may be carrying out checks in-house. Now, the check engine that we've built in this thing, it can be as simple as, yes, the check has been carried out, if that's an external organization. But we also have the ability to give a wide variety of check options that marry almost any Dataverse field type that you can possibly shake your head at. So if you want a list of options, yes, no's, some numbers, some text, all that kind of good stuff, she can build whatever questionnaire she wants inside of the system and have Shiraz and herself do that, and Lucy's there to help her as well.
So flexible, Keith, yeah?
Super flexible, like turn on a sixpence flexible. Like, we built that flexibility in mind. So the checks are where the flexibility is massive, where placements and accommodations and payments and the sponsors and guests. The sponsors and guests are under the contact table, as you'd expect. And accommodation placements and payments are standard tables within inside of Dataverse and could be extended in the normal ways. But checks is kind of a quasi backwards upside down table where you create these checks as records and they go off and get generated. It's pretty cool. It's a pattern we've used.
So if today they need to do 5 checks to make sure that they've done a DBS check, validated the properties safe and secure and all of that, they can add the 6th, 7th and 8th check tomorrow.
Yeah, and they can go and say, like, inside of those checks, what questions do I need to ask inside of those checks as well? So they don't have to do any system configuration inside of Power Apps at all. It's all done in the UI. Okay, so that's really important to remember. So it's very flexible from that standpoint, right? Because that's the one thing that they said, this stuff changes all the time. Every time we spoke to them, this stuff changes all the time. So architecturally, from a Microsoft stack perspective, this is what we've got. We've got data coming in from Foundry down the bottom. Lucy's going to whack that in an Excel spreadsheet, and then we're going to save that in a SharePoint data document library. Flow's going to pick it up, Power BI is going to transform it with a data flow, with some M query, and it's going to stick it straight into lovely Dataverse, and everybody's going to consume it via Power Apps. We've also put some little flows in to kind of help decorate the data where we think that it's common enough, because bearing in mind this is an accelerator. And we've also massively turned on activities. So this was the one thing that like the local authorities kept telling us, that they needed the ability to have this contextual reference around a conversation around a placement, a contact, or an accommodation, be it and that contact be it a guest or a sponsor. So huge amounts of benefit there, just out of the box, just trying to prove the worth of Dataverse to the local authorities from the get-go. So our story today that Larry's going to demonstrate to you, because let's face it, Larry's done 90% of the work in this thing. I just come along and built some Power Apps on the top of it, made it look pretty. So he's going to do the demo rather than me. But Lucy's going to come along and she's going to manually extract the data. We're not going to demonstrate the manual extraction because we don't have access to Foundry. She's going to manipulate and import it. Shiraz is going to come along knowing that there's a new data from Foundry to complete. He's going to go in and decorate those records and tidy up, because the data that comes from Foundry is an absolute mess, and Shiraz is going to sift through that. Katerina, she's going to go off and do some checks. She's going to record some checks, make some checks on the new records that Shiraz has completed, and Shiraz is going to do some magic at the end. And then Lucy's made aware by central government that there's a new check that they've got to do. They're going to make sure that everybody's ready for the Jubilee this weekend, and there's a new Jubilee check or something crazy like that that's come in from our illustrious government leaders, so she can go and create a new check template at the end and Larry will walk you through how that happens. So without further ado, because we wanted to rattle through that as quickly as possible, let's get into a demo. Does anyone have any questions before we jump into demo land? No, good.
Short and sweet. Right. Hi, everybody. Then I will be going through the roles that Keith was showing up, and how they interact with the application from their respective points of view, and related to their specific roles that they are responsible for doing. Right. So I will be taking the roles and talking about the roles from as described earlier. And at this point, I'm putting the hat of Lucy, who's the system admin, who's got the visibility of the initial data and does the extract from the Foundry. And as she does the extract of the Foundry, sorts out the data, configures the data, then she puts that into the respective places. And here in the application, we do get the entries recorded through the automation process or manual process, whichever that would be implemented as. So what we do have here, we do record contacts. And just to give you a quick example and what we have for contacts, we do have all different sorts of IDs that we have. We have got information for contacting people, and then any other related information. For example, sponsor, the contact type of sponsor in this situation we have. We have got a related accommodation that may be recorded, address where they would be for contact detail, contact reasons. And yet again, as Keith has mentioned, we do take advantage of the activities within the timeline. We have created one custom activity for the checks. Yet again, I will be showing that a bit later in the process to identify what's going on with the checks. Just to show a little bit of a difference in how we have accommodated the information. As the guest, we do record similar sort of information regarding the ID elements and contact data. However, we do have a section, if it is a guest, we do have a section of expected dates of arrival, the language capabilities and preferences, and other information. In that respect, we have created multiple kind of people roles that we record. So we do have sponsor, household member, guests, worker maybe who may be involved in any other capacity, or anybody else for that matter. That's why we do have the other option. So that is how I do identify people.
This information is coming, Larry. This information is coming from Foundry, which is managed by central government. Coming into this solution, and we're managing all of the contact types that are called out in the process. So guests, people who are sponsoring refugees coming into the country and making their properties available.
So we're just a brief look into what we have got. So we've got the name, and the type identifying, and the rest of the details that come with it. Then we do have accommodations that we also receive information from Foundry that gets recorded into the accommodation record. And yet again, we've got all the linked information, so related information about specific accommodation, number of bedrooms and such like, address where it's located, what sort of links it's got already, or maybe need updating regarding to the people, and then other further details that may be required. And also it's got the checks and the and other activities available. We also incorporated the image feature in here, where it would be showing if required, it could be used to show what sort of items are there. And then the last thing in this kind of quick section in terms of what's coming in is the placements. So placement effectively is a record that does link all of those together. So we do have the placement information, then we've got the related information, related accommodation that is related to this placement, sponsor information, a bit further down, guest information, and also activities. I forgot one more piece of thing that will be coming from the Foundry as well, which is groups. So, for example, we did have the Anthony Davis as the sponsor. In here, we identified that we group Anthony Davis as a primary member, but with his wife, presumably, as a sponsor household member, to identify that there might be additional checks required against the other household members within the sponsor family.
Sure.
It's worth saying from a data perspective as well here that when we talked about our analytics, that placement entity is kind of our join entity. That's the one that everything kind of tees off of. So that
comes into. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. So that's where Shiraz and Kasha are going to really be focusing on kind of trying to funnel people into that placement. So they're going to join up all of the various pieces of data that are coming from Foundry and join them to create a placement after the relevant checks and balances have been done, and then there's a final set of checks on that placement if necessary.
Yeah, and at the moment, all that's being managed by multiple spreadsheets, separate pools of data, which they're kind of trying to join together to present that one view of a placement with different contacts, different sponsors, and the property sitting at the heart. So at the moment, it's hard work to do that because it's just disparate all over the place.
Yeah, and Larry's going to show you some payments as well, because we're also tracking that.
Yes. So just to change the hat now, Shiraz is the placement manager. So I'm going to try kind of perceive a little bit of what Shiraz's job is within the application. As Shiraz is opening the application, he sees the list of new placements. We've got an option to actually just see how many in number, or access the placements directly from the list in here in our dashboard. So I shall go and select one up. This is the same one that I've shown, but the key part here is that Shiraz is opening this placement information, and then is checking every single piece of information that is already filled in, and also updating that information. Now, what is important for Shiraz is that he's able to actually call the sponsors, create appointments for the accommodation visits, and record all of that information within the timeline. So information is not lost anywhere in the process. It's all tracked, and identify that currently we have got this process in the amber status, and then update everything else accordingly. Shiraz would be his job is actually an awful lot of communication. So in terms of updating the information, it might not be that much. However, he is gathering that information with the support of this application here. Now, what Shiraz will also be able to do is add the payments, because payments is part of the Homes for Ukraine process in general, as we have been notified by local authorities. Some payments will be made, and there was a need to record those payments, to identify those payments and record those within the system, as well as report those. So we have created a little bit of a place where those payments can be recorded. So we've got the payment ID, is just an ID number that we generate, and then who the payment is made, what the amount of payment is, when it is due, has it been made, and also the status reason, whether it is approved or paid.
And that payment could be made within their finance system, but this is keeping a track of it again within that central location.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and again, it was another spreadsheet, wasn't it, that they were talking
Yeah.
about? It was kind of like, it was an aside. Oh, can you also keep track of this? Because it's one of the other things that we need to keep hold of. Once we've got that central nexus of placement, accommodation, and contacts and guests and that kind of thing, it's what else can we throw on the side? And this was one of the common use cases that they came up with.
Yeah.
Yes. So Shiraz's job, as I did mention already, is to update information, and also what we have got is a business process flow. So Shiraz is taking through the stages of business process flow until they complete the checks on a specific date, and then they've got the accommodation confirmed until they get to the end, and they deactivate the record effectively, while still keeping the record itself, but it's just out of the being active ways. Right, changing the hats. Changing the hats to Kasia, Katrina, Kasia, whichever way it's called. The Katrina, she's a checks clerk. She's performing, setting up the checks, and she will be using our little created check engine. So yet again, I'm coming back to the contact record to identify what it looks like. And we've got the contact checks area in here. We can create checks against the contacts, placements, and accommodations. So it's not limited to one specific record as such. It can be created against multiples. But what we've got here, Anthony Davis has got one DBS check against him created. But if I click one of the buttons here, this kicks off a background process to cycle through the process, to take the relevant template and create the questionnaire. Now, what we do need to do is a refresh, and once we refresh, it creates our questionnaire for Anthony Davis automatically. I will open just to have a look at what it looks like, but it's not where it's intended to be handled. Which I will go through. So Kasia just clicks on the button to say, I need to create this questionnaire for Anthony Davis, clicks the button, and then goes away from this record. But what it does at the back end is creates individual questions within that questionnaire. And this is a very kind of problematic creation of what we have done is short text, description, whole number, decimal number, and so on and so on. So it does create this bunch of questions, and it has got some date related information and some status values to identify where the check is within this process.
Okay,
And
so those,
we've done that for demo purposes, by the way. So why we showed those on the screen will become apparent in a moment, rather than calling it, check the temperature of the sausage one and how nice is the mash two and all that kind of thing. We've done that for a reason.
absolutely. So yeah, just so those checks will be make sure that the property is safe, make sure that the DBS check has been completed. I guess what you're highlighting here is the flexibility. So if it needs to be a whole number, it can be a whole number to validate the number of bedrooms, for example. If it needs to be a yes, no, it can be a yes, no. So this is the flexibility of the solution, and we can build on it. And there's
I
questions.
will come to show how it is set up from scratch shortly.
Yeah,
We'll
cool.
need to change hats. So Kasia has generated this check. Then her job is to fill in the check, and that is where Keith has done his magic to do the pretty things. So what we've got Anthony Davis, the record, and we can immediately see that there is a questionnaire for Anthony Davis available. So we do have the questionnaire questions, and further to the right, we've got each individual question in its place as intended. So please enter short text. We enter some short text. Long text actually brings up us to the rich text formatter where we can submit very fancy information. I'm not going to do that now.
You know how council people like to write War and Peace, so we've given them the ability to write War and Peace
and underline them.
So this is awesome, right? Because
I've
got as a checker, I've got one place that I'm going to, and I'm just working through all of the required checks, and those checks might relate to contacts, accommodation, placements, and that flexibility is shown there in the screen as well.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So we've used the full capability of the latest bits of kit that Power Platform offers you to bring you essentially 3 of the main data entities from the system with another couple that we're bringing in on the side. So you've got your accommodations, your placements, and your contacts, and we're throwing in some additional things at one time. So it's a one-stop shop for doing everything in one go to kind of answer those granular questionnaires. And we would look to, if and when we install this with a customer and they're looking to extend it, these are the kinds of customizations that we're looking to do to massively simplify and streamline their workloads to give them maximum benefit from the platform that we're configuring for them.
Cool.
Right. So what is happening here? Kasia is updating the information for the records that are required. The search option is required. Of course, there's going to be a lot more data in this in these lines, and search is available to select. So, for example, we've got a placement and a check available as well, to questionnaire check as well for the placement. Now, what happens here? Kasia is notified that the check questions are not right. So she calls up back on Lucy. And from my perspective, I'm changing the hat to Lucy. And Lucy, being the system administrator, is going into the configurations area. That is where the engine for our check templates and check question templates is residing. And these are the templates that are available, that have been created. So Lucy, as administrator, she will be able to open these up and edit the questions, change the type of questions, change the wording of questions, or create new templates. So what I will do, I will open up the questionnaire just to give you an indication. We do have the order number column in also added, and reason why it is sitting 120, 1020, and so on is just it will be an organizational selection of how they want to actually number it up. But the reason being, if you want to insert a question in between those two, you can just add a number in between, and that gives you that option. Just to give an indication how question is constructed. So the question, he's got its name, then he's got the display text. That is the text that is displayed within the app, what exactly is being asked. Then we have got which template it belongs to, of course, and the order number. But the key part here is selecting what sort of data we want to collect against that record. And that was that questionnaire. I have created every single option of the types that we have got available. that actually creates an immediate data validation for the information that is being created, as well as allows a lot more convenient reporting capabilities. So now Kasia comes in. I'm just going to, sorry, Lucy. Lucy comes in and creates and adds a new question here. New question. Please, please. I will put that at the end with a number of 10, and I'll create an option. Reason I'm creating the option as an options value of the answer type, because we can add the options to identify what options can be selected to the answer. Yet again, that is restricting to what the answer, what you can put as the answer. If you collect free text, reporting is horrible. If we collect set actual answers, then it's got some structure to it. So just to add the option is first.
And this is another example where we once we know what the customer's after, and once you pass that accelerator stage, you come in and you enhance this process with a Canvas application or some other custom piece of code. So like for example, the ordering's all taken care of and all that kind of thing. You make it more and more user friendly as time goes by, where you need to, you need to.
Right. Yeah. So just to give an indication that I have created this new question. This new question will only be included into the new questionnaires, not the existing ones that already have been created. But in this situation, we are already capable of adding editing. And as you can see, this is not a configuration. This is just a data update for Lucy to do. She does not need to go into any of the settings to change values or anything else. She just comes in here and updates information. And of course, coming back to where we are in the dashboards, this is just a placeholder for the dashboards as is, because this is initial information about what we have got available, but it gives the ability to take simplified reporting into the dashboard or take it to the next level, and utilizing the BI tools and so on through connection directly to the database. So
does everybody get what we just demoed? Is everyone sitting there scratching their head going, what the heck was that?
So any questions around how the app's used, the flexibility of the app, the questions that are being built? And it's awesome. It does an awful lot, and it certainly would replace the spreadsheets that are currently being used. So awesome amount of work that you guys have put into it. But yeah, open the floor for any questions.
That looks great. I think a massive improvement on spreadsheets. So no, huge congrats, guys. It's looking good. My question's been answered, so thanks for the response in the chat.
I think one of the benefits I was just going to say, I think one of the benefits this really does give the local authorities versus spreadsheets is a common data model, which is something at the minute that they're just struggling with clearly, and they've got their own version of doing things, but having this as a baseline accelerator, I think would be significantly beneficial for them.
So also just to give also a bit of a background on the technical side, in terms of how we constructed this specific application, we have put that into simplified single solution for deployment, and that would be a basic zip file as we do it, and downloadable for local authorities to just download and import it into their own environments. If they're capable of doing that themselves, that's perfectly fine. If they need any assistance, we would be able to assist with that to how it would work.
Yeah, we got some indicative pricing at that as well.
That's my next question.
Yeah. Of course, it's not, and believe me, we're not taking a mickey on it either. So it's our intention with this thing is to put it out there as an accelerator, just like we did with COVID. You know, our user group, our Power Apps user group in London, one of our members, Georgina, built the original COVID response app that Microsoft put out there at Schlumberger. So we know how important this kind of stuff is. I think that these are, I wrote a paper a long time ago called Templates for Humanity, because I got really frustrated when I looked in Excel and on Office, and I was like, well, what happens is when there's an earthquake, whatever, where's the template for that? I've got a template for packing my bag and for, you know, planning my school trip and all that kind of stuff, but I've got no template for what happens when things do go wrong. And there's been a tremendous amount of work in the community. And, you know, Larry's won a hackathon that was bound by by good charity work, and we've all taken part. Every single one of us on this call has taken part in that, and that's why we put so much effort in. So yeah, that's going to be freely available. Anyone can download it, use it. Hopefully aiming it at the councils, but like if anybody else wants to kind of have a scooch at it, that's the idea. We've already had some interest from other local authorities looking at using it for social housing, so we'll have to unbrand it from being Ukrainian based, but there's no reason why the notion of a guest or sponsor, why that guest has to come from a specific location. It could be from anywhere. So we would look to expand that and use this as a great talking point. One of the questions that came up in the chat there from Felix. Felix, blindingly good question, right? So the check engine that we've got is a lightweight version of something we've built before. If they needed offline, we would look into to put in the more heavyweight version of it. I have used that before to deploy a question and answer system to a charity that went around Africa collecting membership information, and they were offline for 3 weeks. So yeah, it does do offline, but just not in this guise on the model driven side of things, because it's meant as a back office process. But if the local authorities needed to go out and do checks at locations, yes, we could do that. Is it absolutely flawless and perfect? No, because it's Power Apps, and it's almost flawless and perfect, but we can get it very close.
I think this is great. So I think the asks are for for our team is to start to talk about it with your customers. I know a number of accounts have shown an interest, but let's start to shout about it. The solution's freely available. Sounds like you guys are pre-packaging a services offering to help support install it and configure it.
Yeah, so I can share that with you. One moment. Let's have a little look.
I've got a question around the health scale play, if I may, while you're doing that. Is just, could we perhaps record a webinar type thing that we could send out to customers and start to generate interest, because customers are going to want to see something. That's just the nature of the beast. They all said, oh, let's have a demo. But I thought that might be a quick way to scale out across all. And if they need a follow-up conversation with us, with HSO, then we could try to orchestrate that, see what the demand is like, whether that be one-to-one, one-to-few, one-to-many, but that will kind of help progress them to the direction and outcome that they want to go. So just a thought.
Yeah, I think it's a really good shout. Saves us all from jumping on calls all day long, left, right, and centre. I think that would be a great one. We certainly, Michael, who's on the call, is our marketing guru and has got all of the wonderful tools and wizardry to do that with. So we'll create some sort of highly polished video to pipe out for you on that front. In terms,
so sorry, Keith, it's Andy, Lisa. Sorry, I joined late. I was just going to say we did talk about doing some kind of launch pack just to help people adopt this more quickly as well. So the little video, maybe like a half page, etc. But as Keith says, Michael's looking into that at the moment, so we'll see what we can do around that.
Awesome, brilliant. Thanks, Andy.
So indicative pricing, standby beds. It's not actually that terrible. It could be a lot worse. Jump over, there you go. So that's what we're talking. So if they are free to download and install it, configure it themselves if they've got the skills in house, we're totally cool with that. If they want us to come in and do it and they've got no skill, what we're saying is we think 3 weeks with one of our guys to get in there, install, configure it, train them how to do it, become self-sufficient, like train the Lucy character in our play, and other guys as well, make sure that they're all able to play with the system. We're coming in at 9,500, and then we wanted to give you an indication of what customizations look like, right? So we are an agile shop. Our department is a massively agile shop. So we would come at this with 2 week sprints with a price tag of that on it, that would give you a dyed in the wool SA, a lead developer, and a junior dev to do all the heavy lifting and actually get that done.